Hello, 你好，大家. This is Linda, and this is Panda. And this is my first video of its kind. It is going to be a how to celebrate the Lantern Festival, or Yuan Xiaojie, in only 5 minutes, at least to get started. So a little bit of background. This is going to be part of a new video series that I'm making for my Panda Cub Heritage members. And the idea is if we want to connect with our heritage, celebrate these festivals, and we don't know where to start, and we only have 5 minutes on our coffee break after lunch, then just watch the first 5 minutes of this video. And if you have a little bit more time, finish out the video and then go explore the resources. Anyway, so if you are watching this on your Panda Cub Heritage portal, this is what the page is going to look like. And all of the resources that I'll talk about later on in the video are also going to be in your library. If you're watching this as part of my Patreon Heritage tier, all of these resources will be duplicated in the Patreon post, but some of the live sessions that I talk about won't be happening. And then if you are watching this video on YouTube, it means I have gotten over my perfectionism and have posted this completely unedited, full of ums and ooms video straight to my YouTube channel for any and everyone to see. So, all right. So to give a little bit of a background, and I know I'm already rambling, but this is going to be part of my 2024 Big Ten Chinese Festival series. So the Lantern Festival Yuan Xiaojie, 5 minutes starting now. Okay, so Lantern Festival 101, and I'm going to switch Panda to the other hand because I realized that I need my right hand to actually scroll. So if you only have 5 minutes to spare, I would say that the first part of celebrating a festival, right, is understanding it. So here is the must-knows. So the Lantern Festival, also called Yuan Xiaojie or Shengyuanjie, is basically the first full moon after Chinese New Year. And it's actually part of Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year, Solar Lunar New Year. And it's the 15th day of the 15 days of Chinese New Year celebration. Now, folks in China even don't always stick to the 15 days of official celebration, just like folks here don't actually celebrate the 25 days of Christmas that don't actually start until Christmas Day. But the 15th is kind of another opportunity to gather, have a big family meal, and celebrate the beginning of a brand new year. If you're watching the year that I'm recording this, it is the Year of the Dragon. And so it usually falls in February of the Gregorian or Western calendar, and it is 1月15, the 15th day of the first lunar month. So it's related to, and please forgive me for pronunciation, the Chulchulduchin in Tibet, Daeboron in Korea, Koshagatsu in Japan, Tet in Vietnam, and Maga Pucha in Thailand, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos. And so on the final day of the Spring Festival, we celebrate by putting up lanterns and eating delicious foods like tangyuan, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So in terms of festivals, the Lantern Festival doesn't have as many stories associated with it as Chinese New Year, but it does have one Legend of the Heavenly Crane story that I go a little bit further into. So in this 5-minute intro, I'm not going to dive into it, but if you want to kind of read or listen to the full Chinese version of the story, it is in your module here. But when I finish out this video, I will also give kind of a English, kind of Chinglish, bilingual summary. But onto traditions for the Lantern Festival. So the two big ones are hanging lanterns, 挂灯笼, and traditionally some of them have little riddles inside of them. So over here, right, Heji and Panda are guessing 猜灯谜. And it's also just like really nice and festive to have them around your house. And also the making and most importantly eating of tangyuan is a big tradition. So tangyuan are these quote-unquote glutinous rice dumplings. They don't actually have any wheat gluten in them. The glutinous kind of talks about like the sticky yin mix, like nature of them. And they are basically usually sweet sesame paste or other sort of sweet, yummy goodies wrapped in this glutinous like rice paste and then cooked. And they're very delicious. And these days there are a lot of tangyan recipes out there, including like an air fryer tangyan recipe if you want to try it. So tangyan, making it from scratch can be a little bit daunting. So I would say if you want to spend more than 5 minutes and celebrate the first iteration, I would encourage you to actually just go buy some tangyan and then cook it according to the instructions. And to wrap up our 5 minutes, I hope it's been 5 minutes, a festival greeting you can say for Yuan Xiaojie Lantern Festival is 祝你元宵快乐，团团圆圆每一年. So wishing you a happy Yuan Xiaojie Lantern Festival, and may your year be full and I'm actually not great at translating this, full and together and full of happiness every year, basically. And at the very end, if you scan these, if you're a Heritage member, I have put together an ordering guide, some activities on how to make your own lanterns and how to make your own tangyan. And if you scan them or if you come to your Heritage library, that's where all of this is. Okay, all right, so that was our 5 minutes. And if you did your, 大中小 Heritage goal mapping exercise with me, you can call it a day, stop the video, pat yourself on the back, like pour yourself a drink. I'm actually drinking some very flat Prosecco. But that was the first 5 minutes of how to celebrate Lantern Festival. So for the next part of the video, and I actually don't know how long this is going to take. I'm going to guess it's going to take maybe 15 more minutes. I'll just put Panda to the... Okay, so I won't put her aside. She'll stay right here. But I'll go back and do a slightly deeper dive into some of the things that we touched on for Lantern Festival. And also, if you are wondering why I'm starting with Lantern Festival and not Chinese New Year, the reason is I got really overwhelmed with how big of a thing Chinese New Year was, and I didn't make a one-pager, so that will have to wait for 2025. All right, so Xiaojie Lantern Festival, again, it's part of the Panda Cub Festivals module here, if you are part of the Panda Cub Heritage community. Yay. And if you come down here, you'll see that we have our 2024 Chinese American Festival Bundle, which includes the wallpaper that you see here. So you can just, at a quick glance, know when all the festivals are coming up. I've also put dates that I want to remember, like Mutsinjie, Mother's Day, and Futsinjie, Father's Day. And Chinese New Year, there is some content here. I'm going to beef it up more in 2025. And then Lantern Festival. So these are all the things that when we look at the one-pager, the QR codes refer to. And again, if you're watching this on Patreon, we'll replicate it in the Patreon post. Okay, so coming back to the story of the Lantern Festival. So why is it, right, that we typically in China light bright red lanterns and set off firecrackers to celebrate this day? So one of the more story-oriented, fun kind of explanations is the legend of the heavenly crane, Xianghe. So once upon a time, right, there in the heavens lived a beautiful white crane who was a favorite of Yuan Dadi, the Jade Emperor, and she lived in the Yuan and the Jade Garden in the heavens in the palace. So at the same time, down in the human world, there was a monster. And in Chinese lore, there are a lot of monsters. This could be the Nian monster, it could be the Sui monster, right? All we know is there were these scary like scary ass monsters that would come down from the mountains and, gobble up people and in general just cause havoc. So as the story goes, one day the villagers, they had enough. They were like, right? We are going to go hunt us some monsters. And so they get all geared up with their arrows and their spears, and they go to the mountains determined to make their village safe. So on the same day, the heavenly crane, who lived in the palace in the sky, decides to stretch its wings and fly down to the human world. It is very curious, and it kind of just like, I deserve a vacation. I've been beautiful, doing my part, being all tranquil in the heavenly palace for eons. It is time for me to go have some R&R. So the heavenly crane flies from the heavens down to this beautiful mountain where humans reside, and the sun is setting and it's painting its feathers all golden and orange and pink and purple, and it's absolutely beautiful. But as the sun is setting, there are distant rumblings of thunder, right, in the distance, and then raindrops start pelting down, and the crane, like very naturally, tries to seek shelter, and it sees down in the mountains there seems to be a cave, and it's like, oh great, I can fly in there, wait out the rain, and then I'll just go home. The mortal land is nice, but heaven is still nicer, so I'm just gonna go back. Unfortunately, on the same day, the monster hunting party of villagers had also gotten caught in the rain, and they had gotten to the cave first. And so in the cave, they see this big dark shadow flying towards them, and they are absolutely terrified. They are sure that it is the monster coming back to its lair, and if they do not strike first, then they are, they are in for it. So the villagers, they draw their bows and they just shoot all the arrows at this flopping dark creature that is coming into the cave. And as the heavenly crane kind of falls and plummets to the ground, the villagers are sort of like whispering to themselves, like, 妖怪死了吗? Is the monster dead? And someone is like, oh, it doesn't really look like a monster to me. 好像不是妖怪哦, right? And they eventually see that what they have shot down is this beautiful crane, and they feel really bad, right? Well, I guess like if we were being logical about it, they would probably just be like, great, like more meat, we'll eat it. But maybe they recognize that this is not your normal bird. So they feel bad, and they scoop it up and they carry the crane down with them into the village. So at this time, the Jade Emperor, we're switching scenes, we're heading back into the heavens. He is just, strolling, taking a little after dinner walk in his gardens, and he's like, 怎么没有仙鹤呢? I haven't seen my crane in a while. I wonder where it is. And so he summons his generals, 千里眼 and 顺风耳. So the god who can see for thousands of li, and the other god who has super hearing, like 顺风耳. He can hear wherever the wind blows. And he was like, take a peek around the palace, just like, or, expand the radius. And I want to know where my favorite crane is. So Tian Yan looks into the distance, and 顺风耳perks up his ears, and 顺风耳, he hears the whispers and a voice coming from the wind, and it says, 妖怪把它射掉. So it's a monster, shoot it. And then 千里眼 sees the image, right, of these villagers carrying the magical grain down from the mountains. And so they go and they report and they tattletale to the Jade Emperor, and they're like, yeah, the human villagers, they said your crane was a monster and they murdered it, right? So they shot it down. And the Jade Emperor, he is incredibly angry. And so he orders that, like, on 正月15, on the 15th day of the first lunar month, I order 天兵天将. So all of my heavenly celestial warriors, you go storm that village and you raze it to the ground. You burn it to the ground. I don't want, 一根草, 一个房子, 一个人都不要留. So I want completely scorched earth policy, just like this is what they get for killing my favorite pet, basically. And the Yunyu, so the Heavenly Emperor's daughter, she hears this and she's like, oh, that seems like it's a little bit of an overreaction, but of course the Emperor's word is law, and I'm not going to contest my Fuang on this, right? But what she does instead is she rides a moonbeam down from the heavens into the village to basically give them a little bit of a warning. And so at first the villagers are just bedazzled. They're dazzled. They are absolutely just taken over by how beautiful this celestial maiden is. She came down with like starlight in her hair and whatnot. But as the celestial maiden opens her mouth and starts to speak, that's when the wonder gradually turns into horror. And she says, because you have killed the Jade Emperor's beloved crane, on the 15th day of the first lunar month, a calamity will befall your village. The celestial army will come and they will raze your village to the ground. And the villagers are just like, oh no, whoa, doom is me, like, woe is me, what are we to do? And while everyone is sort of like boo-hooing, a little voice comes, and it's a little girl who, in one hand, she's carrying a water pail, and in the other hand, she's carrying a bright red lantern. And she says, but she says, but the crane, it's not dead. I was just bringing it some water. 我刚给它带一些水，它在休息呢. So it's just, resting. What are you talking about, right? And the celestial maiden looks at the child and she smiles to herself. And, in all of these stories, you will find that gods never actually just tell you what to do. They're all super cryptic, and this story is no different. So she says, it's good that the crane isn't dead, but you have still committed a crime. You have hurt a entity from the heavens, so there is no way to avoid the calamity that is coming. However, 能拯救所有人命的一个主意. So one way to save all of your lives can be found in the hand of a child. Right? And with that cryptic message, she kind of twinkles away into a flurry of butterflies or stars or whatnot, and she 化成月光 and goes back to the palace. So she magics her way back into thin air. And so the villagers think of them, as like herpy-derpy. They're like, what is she talking about? Hands of a child? Why couldn't she be more specific, right? Like, this is no way to be a CEO. Well, she's not a CEO anyway. But enter old woman, character, stereotype, archetype, and she looks around and she sees the child holding a lantern, and she's like, don't worry, wise old me, I know exactly what to do. And so, for the next couple of days before 1月15, right, before the first full moon of the year, the villagers are busy. They're busy making lanterns, hanging them up, hiding firecrackers around every house. And on the night before, what is now known as Yuanxiaojie, what is now known as the Lantern Festival. They 一家家把灯笼点得通红亮, so they light all of the red lanterns that's hanging on all of the streets in front of 就是每个家的门口, in front of all the houses. And on the day of 正月15, on the day of Lantern Festival, they also light a bunch of firecrackers. So there is just, their city is blaze with red and full of the sound of basically explosions. And right as that is happening, the celestial army, right, that was promised is on its way over to complete its mission. But the generals look ahead and they see that the village is already ablaze with red. It looks like it's on fire. And they hear in the distance, like the sounds of explosions going. And they're like, oh, okay, like maybe another battalion already came and did our job, right? And so they're like, okay, you know what? We have a lot of things to do. We're busy. Mission accomplished. Work smarter, not harder. So they return to the Heavenly Palace and so they report back to the Jade Emperor. And they're like, it has been done, right? The village has been raised. It is ablaze. Not a single blade of grass will have survived that terrible, terrible onslaught. Or not terrible, but will have, survived our righteous onslaught. And the Jade Emperor goes like, very good. And because he's an emperor, he has better things to worry about. He just returns to doing his emperorly things in the heaven. Now, down in the village, a new day dawns, and the lanterns are dying down, but in the daylight, they're still beautiful and red, and not a single blade of grass was touched, and not a single life was lost. And as for that magical crane, right, who was still chilling, it's already recovered. I mean, 毕竟它是个仙鹤嘛, right? So, I mean, it's a magical crane. It has, very fast, like, HP revival skills. And so it stretches its wings and, ruffles its feather. All of its injuries are fine. And it flaps its wings and heads back to the heavens where it once came. So, as for, whether or not the Jade Emperor goes like, oh, wait, hey, my crane is back from the dead, who knows? A lot of this story was also my own embellishments. But that is the story and the legend of the heavenly crane behind the Lantern Festival, the Yuanxiaojie. All right. Okay, so that is going to be mostly the end of our video. That was, if you had more than 5 minutes, you have now, heard the panda version of the legend of the heavenly crane behind the Lantern Festival. And the last thing that I'll end with is a quick walkthrough of, if you have more than 30 minutes to spare, which is, I think, how long this video has been going for, a little bit less. It says I've been recording for like 23 minutes. But if you have more time to spare and would like to really go all out in prepping for the Lantern Festival, here are some things that you can do. So I have added this coloring sheet for the Lantern Festival in case you wanted to print it out and color it. If you wanted to re-listen to the story of the Lantern Festival, or listen to that story but in Mandarin instead to practice your Mandarin listening comprehension, you can come to the Kajabi portal, click on the story behind the legend of the Lantern Festival, and while you're coloring, you can listen to that in Chinese. If you're on Patreon, I believe I've already posted this onto Patreon, but April is my wonderful team member in VA. As you're watching this and as you're creating the Patreon post, can you make sure that this Chinese version is also uploaded to Patreon and then linked? Or if we upload to YouTube, you can link the YouTube video instead. Right. So that's the black and white coloring sheet. And if you want to do some online shopping in advance of the Lantern Festival, which today I'm recording this Wednesday, February the 21st of 2024, so you have 3 more days to order your stuff. You can also check out our ordering guide, which is over here. And Patreon folks, I will also put this in the Patreon post. So if you want to order in advance for some paper lanterns, you can come to these links. I have them all linked out here. So this one is blue. Oh no, they used to have a red one. So I would go with, either orange or pink or something like this. Or like bright orange, something like that, if you want to be super traditional. And you can also, if you don't want to support big business Amazon, totally understandable. There are also a lot of really great DIY ideas. So I've linked one video, but you can also pick others. So in addition to decoration, if you wanted to try your own hand at making tangyuan, I've linked a recipe here from Walks of Life, our friends over at Walks of Life. And I would say I actually personally have never made tangyuan from scratch. It is a bit of an endeavor. So let's see, so it takes like an hour and 40 minutes to prep. And usually for me, I always take longer, so it's probably a 2.5-hour endeavor for me. So if you, want to experience this, but you don't want to make it yourself, I've also listed some tangyuan products from Oui, which is the Asian grocery website that I use. I think you can probably also find it on Amazon. And honestly, if you go to any Asian grocery store, it should also be in the frozen food section. You'll just have to kind of look for it and make sure you're not getting like savory fish balls or something for hot pot. All right. And if you have little ones and you want to explore some children's books, I've also linked some down here. So there's some in English, some in traditional Chinese. And if you have any suggestions of books, definitely message them to me, and then I will add them to the ordering guide. I know the Amy Wu series is coming out with a Lantern Festival book, but I don't think that's coming out until next year. All right. And last but not least, so I also have this recipes and activities section here on the Panda Cub Heritage Library. So I think if you're watching this on Patreon, I'm just going to put this all in the same post. So, you would just scroll down to each section. And some of these are just like repeats of the links that I mentioned earlier. So under the, here's where you buy lanterns, but if you want to make it yourself, here is, right, like an option. But this is like, if you only want to just do recipes and activities, here are some handy dandy links. All right. So with that being said, that was the end of our how to celebrate the Lantern Festival. And I think Panda was out of frame for a lot of that. Sorry. Okay, so I have not thought out an outro for this. I don't know really what to say. So I will be back with another one of these videos for the Blue Dragon Festival, or Longtaitou Zhonghejie, which is in 2024, coming up in March. This is a lesser known festival. It's very agrarian, but it's fun, and we get to learn a little bit more about dragon facts. So until then, I wish you a 元宵节快乐，祝你团团圆圆每一年。All right, happy Lantern Festival. Bye.